Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Orr from and I'm the Executive Director of the UK and Ireland Spill Association. And I'd like to welcome you to this Sustainable Spill Response webinar. It's the second in our series of 4 that we're doing throughout this year. The first one was an introduction, and it sort of covered the ground of just saying what sustainability was and gave some examples of sustainability in practice through our members, and we had several of our members presenting. And you can see that I'll put the link to where the webinars get put after they've been recorded and edited. But this one today is we're looking at tools to help businesses manage their drive to sustainability, how to use those tools, and to discuss some easy wins for businesses. So I'm really grateful that we have Nicola Harries, who's the Technical Director of Clare, joining us to help us with that. And I'd also like to thank OAMPS, who are our event sponsor and therefore enable us to conduct all of these webinars. So a little bit about the association, for those that don't know it. We're the trade association for marine and inland response companies in the UK, and we represent contractors, manufacturers and consultants. We also, through our sister company, International Spill Accreditation Scheme, have an accreditation scheme that provides accreditation for inland oil and chemical spills. And we also deliver the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency scheme for the accreditation of marine spill response organisations. And you can see more details on our accreditation activities at www.isasaccreditation.org. And you've actually probably noticed that spill response has been in the news lately with the incident the regrettable incident down at Poole Harbour. But that is a good example of how preparation, training, on-site practice and on-site delivery of services has been effective in minimizing what could have been a very nasty spill in a very sensitive environment. Now, sustainability is key to our members and to ensure that in delivering spill response, we minimize our impact on the environment. In 1987, the United Nations Brundtland Commission defined sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. From all this, the Sustainable Development Goals were introduced by the UN, and they form the framework for improving the lives of populations around the world and mitigating the hazardous man-made effects of climate change. And in particular, I'll draw your attention to SDG 13, Climate Action, and SDG 14, Life Below the Water, and SDG 15, Life on Land. And basically, it just calls for more sustainable practices in using the Earth's natural resources. And what we are seeing is that those resources are limited. Now, driven by these global goals, all responsible businesses should work now and in the future in the most sustainable means possible. They should plan to improve their sustainable performance over time. And this means that work should be planned and delivered as sustainably as possible. And there should be an objective to achieve continual improvement. Sustainability in spill response is one of our trade association's key leadership themes for this year. So what we're going to discuss in this webinar is the benefits of sustainability, introduce some tools for helping you on your sustainability journey, talking about using KPIs in measuring your progress along your sustainability journey. We're going to touch on life cycle assessments, supply chain sustainability, and then talk about some easy wins to start your sustainability journey. And then I'll be giving some examples of sustainability working in practice from within the industry as we go through the presentation. Now, the benefits of sustainability. Well, cost savings can be achieved when you work more sustainability and when you integrate them into the way that your business or your company or your division within your company works sustainably. You've got to invest some upfront effort in organizing your management systems and your working practices and your procurement practices to start achieving these cost savings. But as you start to deliver them, you will see a benefit over time. And actually, it's not a long time that you have to wait to see these benefits being achieved. But it also has to work in tandem with a change in approach through all your staff. They must all buy into sustainable working. Other things to consider are that there is a risk reduction. The more you take volatile fuels and volatile products and convert to those that are less harmful to the environment, the less concerned you have to be about the explosive risks of using petrol to go into equipment on site, or using aggressive cleaners and stuff like that. They become less harmful to your staff, but they're also less harmful to the environment. Working sustainably improves your reputation. It starts to set your business apart from others as you undertake a sustainability journey, particularly if you adopt ISO 14001:2015 as a key milestone along your journey, because that actually ensures that you have to document what you do, you have to quantify the effect that it's having, and you've got to see the messages that you're giving out cascading through your workforce, but also in the way that you deliver your sustainability. And you end up having to document it. And documenting is something that in all businesses we tend to say we just haven't got time to write it all down. But actually documenting it is really good, because you can share the benefits of what you've achieved with your workforce, but you can also share what you have done with your customers. And of course, ultimately, they dictate the success of your business. Equally, being on a sustainability journey is a differentiation factor when tendering for contracts. Now, what I'm going to do is hand over to Nicola, who's going to talk about some tools for sustainability. It's essential to have access to tools that save reinventing the wheel, that work and are trustworthy, and are proven to work. And as the technical director within Clare, of which the association is a member, we find their resources really valuable and really helpful in helping our members become more sustainable. So I'll shut up and I'll hand over to Clare. Sorry, hand over to Nicola from Clare. I do apologise.
That's absolutely fine. I've worked for Clare for many years and I've been called Clare an awful lot of times. So that is absolutely fine.
I'm red-faced now.
No, don't be, honestly. So hopefully people can see the screen. Is that right? Yeah,
That's
everyone's okay. I'm getting a thumbs up from Tony. I can see him straight and okay, that's great. So thank you, Mark. As Mark said, I'm going to give you, it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour because I've got 20 minutes and I wanted to share as much information with you as possible. But hopefully what it will do is give you some more knowledge of where to go and get some thoughts and some inspiration of trying to improve your sustainability journey. So thank you. I'm Nicola Harris, Technical Director at Clare, and I'm also the Project Secretariat of SURF UK, which is the Sustainable Remediation Forum UK. So just for those of you who aren't familiar who Clare is, we are a not-for-profit organisation that works in the land contamination brownfield sector. So it crosses over very much with the Spill Association work, not solely, but there is a good good crossover. We've got a huge amount of information that's available on the library that we make freely available. But as I mentioned, we are the Secretariat of SURF UK, and we also coordinate the International Sustainable Remediation Alliance, which is the SURFs, the Sustainable Remediation Fora, across different countries across the world. So there's, not just the UK. This is a global thing. So SURF UK was, and everything I'm going to speak to you about is about deliverables that SURF UK have produced that you can access yourselves. So we were established back in 2007 as a project, and the key document that everything has built from, the building blocks, is the SURF UK framework that was published in 2010, that was signed off by regulators and government across the UK and devolved across the whole of the UK, including England, Wales and the devolved administrations. The ISO standard that is in existence now, that was published in 2017 on sustainable remediation, was strongly influenced by the SURF UK framework, and it's fully aligned. So that's really important for those who work overseas. And everything we've tried to produce is usable at different levels, depending on whether you're working on a project level, whether you're planning, master planning, if you work in the remediation industry as well, but also whether you're undertaking options appraisal, remediation strategy, or implementation verification, those sort of things. So everything we've done is sort of holistic. You can use it at lots of different levels. So that's important. So as Mark mentioned, the Brundtland report back in '87, sustainable remediation is the application of the principles of sustainable development. So that's what you're seeing often in LCRM, the Land Contamination Risk Management, which is the Environment Agency's sort of land contamination pages, which I believe you are aware of. And they signpost to SURF UK very strongly, and they are advocates of sustainability within processes and procedures. So SURF UK defines sustainable remediation as the practice of demonstrating, in terms of environmental, economic and social indicators, the benefits of undertaking remediation is greater than its impact, that the optimum remediation solution is selected. So it's making sure that you have a balanced decision-making process, and you're thinking about the social, the economic and the environmental aspects. And that's important, because we're quite sort of environmentally focused, but you do have to think about the other elements. So as I mentioned, it links to LCRM, and it's also mentioned there's other guidance that the Environment Agency has produced about appropriate use of sustainability. So everything I'm going to talk about, you can find from the SURF UK pages on the CLARE website. So the central www.clare.co.uk SURF UK. Everything that I'm now going to mention, you will be able to see on the website. Okay. So something, if you want sort of principles, top level, there's a lovely 3-minute animation if you want to educate clients, that sort of thing, about what are the principles of sustainable remediation. 3-minute animation, great to have an introduction. If you've got overseas clients who don't speak English, it's also subtitles in many different languages. So great as a start. A paper, I'm not going to dwell on this, but there's a paper if you have got some naysayers, let's say, about sustainability, sustainable remediation. It's a great paper about debunking the myths of sustainable remediation. Some of the messages that when we first started back in 2010 were saying, it just costs a lot of money. It's the same as green remediation. It's all about carbon footprinting. This is a great paper, high level, not in too much detail, just dispels some of the myths, worth a 10-minute read. As I mentioned, the framework is key to the work of SURF UK, and from there, that is a building block that we've built from. So you can't see the detail, but I'd actively encourage you you'll see this figure often within documents about signposting to sustainable remediation. It just talks about you can use sustainability at a high level planning stage or an actual application stage, an implementation stage. That's how simple it is. But it also talks about a tiered approach. It's very, very important to start simple. Don't get complex. You don't need to be complex. Do things at a qualitative stage if you can. If you're making decisions, do it as a simple staged approach. Don't go straight away to carbon counting or life cycle analysis. It's fine, it's got its place, but try and stay simple to get your big quick wins. If you take anything away, these are the key principles of sustainable remediation, 6 key principles, and you as business operatives in spill or just general business, environmental business, these are 6 key processes, principles: protection of human health and the environment, safe working practices, consistent, clear, reproducible decision making, good record keeping and transparent record keeping, good governance, stakeholder involvement, sound science. There's nothing there that you as good business operatives wouldn't adhere to, I'm sure. They are the key principles of sustainable remediation and why you can embed it within your own practices. It's not an add-on, it's embedding it within your work. So 2 documents that have recently been updated, SR1, Supplementary Report 1 and 2, they are the how to do documents. So the SR1, they are the supplementary reports to the overall framework. SR1 is the role of sustainability, how it all fits in together, and talks about going from qualitative all the way to quantitative. And also then the SR2 is the functionality. How do you do? So we talked about, Mark mentioned about the UN SDGs, for example. This report goes into the indicators. How do you measure sustainability in a very high level qualitative way? It also has mapped all the indicators against the UN SDGs. So there's a good linkage there. And you use it as a checklist. And now I'll refer to all of these documents going through. So sustainability indicators are what you're measuring against. So they encourage wide-ranging considerations of what is sustainability, how you can improve your site-specific decision-making, improve transparency and support your decisions at the different tiers, as I mentioned. Keep it simple. So the indicators, Surf UK, and these have been referenced globally, these are 15 indicators, headline indicators that you have now been mapped against the UN SDGs. There's lots and lots of detail below each of these headlines, which you can see in the SR2 report, but these are the sort of headlines that you can map against at a simple level. So the tools all link back to these Surf UK headline indicators. So this builds on what Mark said about, why use sustainability tools, identifying opportunities to add value, reduce impact at cost, adds transparency, good record keeping, better to engage your stakeholders. It complements if you are working to LCRM, which a lot of you would be. It also helps your clients' CSR credentials, so you can help meet their criteria. If they have at a company level, they have to demonstrate how they're meeting sustainability, you can be helping them. So the tools will be there to help you meet your clients' criteria. Makes good business sense and obviously improves education about sustainability. So there's 2 tools. So the reason I had to give you the background is you'll see the 2 tools are actually built around all the background information to help you actually implement. So there's two tools, one called the Sustainable Management Practices, and then a slightly more complex tool, which is actually carrying out a sustainability assessment at a high level qualitative stage. Free, easy, and flexible. Okay. So the Sustainable Management Practices, these these can be implemented at any stage in a land contamination management project to improve your environmental, social, and economic performance. They can be used as part of formal assessment or just to improve your sustainability performance within your company. So it really depends on where you are on the journey, if you're early on or where you're sort of really getting into this. They can be used at any stage, okay? They can be used on a project level. They can be used on a portfolio of sites level if you're a business managing lots and lots of sites, but you can also use it at a corporate level within your company and say, right, I'm going to set these standards across my company. So sustainable management practices can be used at different levels, depending on you as your business on your journey. So what is a sustainable management practice? Again, building on what Mark was saying, these are things that easy wins. So going back to the indicators that I mentioned, we've mapped lots of easy wins against the SURF UK indicators, the 15 indicators. So where you can see SOC 1, SOC 3, Environmental 1, Environmental 5, they are the indicator headlines. So for example, if you minimized your vehicle movements across your site and you made that a company procedure, you are meeting these headline indicators. You can start mapping them. So sustainable management practices, they are simple, common sense actions that can be mapped against the SR2 report. Okay, they can improve your project general benefits. They can also improve reduce your negative impacts on a project. So just bear those in mind. You can use them at a planning stage, or you can use them at a construction stage if you're involved in that as a business, or you can be using them at a project level, whether you're carrying out site investigation, whether you're doing a walkover, if you're carrying out remediation. Depending on what you're undertaking, you can use sustainable management practices at all these different levels. And so what we've done is we've actually mapped these activities. We've come up as a group, we've come up with 183 different potential. You don't have to use them all. These are just as an aid memoir to help you think, oh, right, I hadn't thought about that could be considered sustainable practice. So we've measured them against procurement processes, land use processes, and if you carry out remediation, you can use them on that. If you're going to do an options appraisal, you can use them on that. So we've measured the 15 different indicators, headline indicators, and we've looked at lots and lots of activities against those. So there's just some examples of them against the indicators. So simple process, haven't got time to go through all the process, but you just identify the activity, you measure it, you record it, and then you think, has that worked or has that not worked as a business? So it's all about your transparent process and recording of these, and you think how well that's done as a business. You may adapt it, you may adopt it, you may think, no, that didn't work for us, we'll move on to something else. So we've got a lovely spreadsheet that you can access. You can refine it, you can tailor it to your own business, but these are SMPs that you can add to how you like. You can discount them, say not applicable, but just have a look and think, oh yeah, actually we could use that one, or hadn't even considered that. So as I said, we've got a nice spreadsheet that you have mapped against the SMPs, 183 of them, then the different project activities, and then how they map against the different indicator, the 15 different indicators, whether they do meet it or if they don't meet it. So search away at your leisure, and you can decide what works, what doesn't work for you as a company. Then you can, with the transparent recording process, you can start evidencing whether that's worked or it hasn't worked, how things have improved. So this is talking about soil mixing or, you know, keeping things segregated on site. So you say, right, why are we doing this? We're justifying it because we want to reduce material going to landfill. We want to reduce the importing of good quality soil. If you were doing a remediation and then a restoration project, for example, did you use it? Yes or no? And then you give a post review process as well, evidencing things. So it's just start your recording process, start changing your attitude and your procedures internally. Some quick examples, got some lovely posters that you can print off at your leisure, but these are just showing you things like if you considered using alternative energy sources, how you would meet the different indicators. If you were going to say, as a company process, we now require equipment not to run for no purpose, to not be sitting idling, basically. These meet all of those different indicators. If you are going to use mobile labs, rather than sending things off site all the time, if you're taking samples, then it meets these different indicators. So we've tried to think really carefully about the procedures that you may from the land contamination brownfield sector, which I think you could make use of. There's a report, there's the spreadsheet that you can access. So the second tool, which is sort of the step up from the SMPs, is an actual qualitative tool that is built solely around the SR1 report. So this is, how do you carry out your sustainability, your tier 1, the simple qualitative sustainable remediation assessment. So this is where you start carrying out an actual preparation and defining what you're going to do. So this is the next stage. So you start framing your remediation. So you're describing what you're going to be doing. You are setting your boundaries and your objectives and your methodology and your approach. This is the sort of, how do you do? So you're following SR1. It's all documented how you carry out a sustainability assessment. And this is a tool for you to actually function that through. So it's a series, again, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It's a series of Excel sheets you have to fill out, and it starts making you think about, all right, I'm going to be comparing one option against another option. So they're the two tools I think you could really make use of, very quick wins. Two things I just wanted to also flag to you is there's two bulletins that we've produced recently. The one on my left, people are starting to talk about resiliency and adaptation of, you know, how do we have to develop resiliency within our businesses? That's something you may want to have a look at. But building on what Mark said about ISO 14001, Surf UK would also advocate that, because what we've done is we've identified how ISO 14001, if you are starting to think about embedding the principles of that, we've actually shown how sustainable remediation embeds really well with 14001. So I'd actively encourage you to have a quick read of that. And the last thing I wanted to say is, you know, if you want to learn a bit more, we do have an e-learning training course, which this one isn't free, I would tell you. It's a module that you can do some testing of yourself after the end of the course, and you get a CPD certificate. But if you want to sort of start building up the building blocks again of understanding the whole process and procedure of what's involved, it's worth it's 4 hours of CPD, and you just do the modules when you like. So it might be worth you having a look at that. But as you know, just my last message, and this sort of builds on what Mark said again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There's some really quick wins. The SMPs, I think, would be a great starter for you. The tier 1 and all the other sort of resources that are available to you from Surf UK's website. I would advocate having a good sort of mooch around, but fundamentally keep things simple and just start embedding sustainable principles into your practices.
That sounds great. Well done, Nicola. If you're a business, and there's on the webinar today, there's big business owners, there's senior managers within businesses. Have you generally found that where there is an ambassador for sustainability, someone who's got a particular burning passion about the topic, that actually it's empower them to be enthusiastic and to be the ambassador for it, and to help work with people, with managers within the business, be they project managers, middle management, to look at how and work with them on how they can make their department or their area of the business, and try to help come up with easy wins, and help them have tools by which they can document what they've done, but also the difference it's made.
Yeah, I think there's multiple levels of engagement, I would say. If you're a big PLC, it can often be your shareholders who start to drive this. So that's one level. So then they may start having board level people say, we've got to explain ourselves to our shareholders. So how do we then embed these principles throughout and cascade that information? And that can be a really powerful, that's a sort of the CSR, agenda coming through from that. You have the general health and safety. We want to save money across the business. How can we do this, but also demonstrate how we are thinking if you go back to the sort of the principles of sustainable remediation, there's nothing there that good business wouldn't follow. That's the fundamental thing, is those principles are standard business principles. And if you think, oh well, I do that anyway, you almost get 2 bangs for your buck. So if you think, right, okay, I need to have good health and safety on site, well, these are principles of sustainable remediation. People just hadn't thought about it in that way. It's just changing your mindset slightly. That's what I would say. So that's why the sustainable management practices, I think, is a really good starting point. Just to start embedding it into lots of your processes and procedures, and just think, how could we potentially, like you said, change the chemicals you're using and things. But it's more, if you think about health and safety, why would you put buns and things around your spill, so you're not going to get spills, because you're not going to, it's just really simple processes that you hadn't thought you could map as a sustainable practice. I think.
I think I'll pick up a couple of points towards the end of at the end of the presentation, which I'd like to ask you again, Nicola. Okay, cool. If you can unshare, that would be grand. I'll share.
I will. I'm just trying to unshare. Stop share. There you go.
That's it. Cool. Thank you. Right, I'll find my presentation now. Okay, right. Just check I'm in the right place. Good, I am in the right place. Okay. Following on from what Nicola was saying, try when you're on this journey, set some things that you want to achieve, just so you can measure your progress along the journey. But don't try and set the bar too high. We're all busy. We've all got an inbox which is bursting. We've all got staff which are after bits of your time. You're always tendering for work. You've got stacks of things to do. But if you can set some easy milestones that you can pick out on your journey, but then put them down as corporate or departmental KPIs. So things that you can measure your progress along the journey. Start with simple wins. Don't go for really complicated, highfalutin things like, we're going to change our vehicle fleet. Okay, yeah, fine. If you're going to change one van, think about what you're going to change it to, and include within that the sustainable option, i.e., we're going to have a hybrid van as opposed to having a diesel van. But if you can't afford that, just go and change your van from being a Euro 4 van to you being a Euro 6 van. And document the fact that you've achieved that. And maybe as your business business grows, the next van that you'll have will be a hybrid van, because it's a bit more expensive, but it has a bigger win for your business. If you use this, the KPIs can be motivational, because this isn't you as a manager or you as an individual on the journey. It's the people around you who are also on this journey, and you want to involve them as being part of the journey. So if you're a smaller member of our organization, perhaps with 6 staff and a couple of trusted contractors, involve them in what you're trying to do, explain what you're trying to achieve, because I'm sure they'll all have ideas. And generally, everyone is enthusiastic about being on this journey, because they want to see that the world they leave behind is in a better place than it is now. So because it's their kids who are going to benefit significantly from you adopting the journey. One of the easy wins is to consider your site costs against your office costs, because generally your site costs will be where the gains are the largest. But there are easy wins along the way. An electric when you have an excavator on site, particularly on a spill, how many hours of hard runtime does that work? I know even when we were decommissioning petrol stations in my business, it would be very rare that we got, because of the needs for sampling, the needs for moving things around site, the needs to gain access for trucks coming in to take muck away from our sites, they generally ran 5, maybe 6 hours a day. But you can get an electric excavator which will reduce all of the hard running on diesel, and it will run for 4 to 5 hours a day, with a massive saving in greenhouse gases every day, but equally a lot less noise for your neighbors to put up with. And that, you've got 2 wins there for the cost of 1 initiative. So do think about that. Don't be too ambitious and over enthusiastic. Now, life cycle assessments. Now, you might say, why are we thinking about life cycle assessments? Yes, I would say generally these are things which happen in bigger businesses, but also on this webinar are companies who are larger businesses. And strategically, you might be doing this for your larger businesses to look at, how you consider major asset purchases, how life cycle assessment should influence major business decisions. And there are some good tools to do this. And I'd flag up EcoInvent. I'll also flag up SEMA Pro. And what I will do is I'll put a string of other areas you could go to for life cycle assessments in the note that will come out to all who've registered after this webinar. Supply chain sustainability. Now, many of your companies will have contracts with certain supply chain suppliers. It might mean that you've got a special discounted rate with Speedy or HSS for your hire equipment. Engage them in your journey and say, look, let us know when you've got things which are more sustainable than the kit we use now. And actually, we want to use kit which is more sustainable. So involve them in that, so that when they've actually got in their stock, they've got solar powered lighting towers, or they've got special plug-in battery plug-in equipment that you can use, as opposed to using a petrol chainsaw. You can actually use a battery operated chainsaw, as opposed to using so you can actually use power tools which are just battery, and you just have a bank of batteries within the site office which you swap over, which actually reduces the need to have petrol on site, and actually means that you're delivering your work more sustainability. So do challenge your suppliers to help you achieve some of your sustainable goals. And bear in mind that for the hire companies, it's always a differentiating factor when they're trying to push stuff to you, but it differentiates them. For example, Speedy have spent a lot of money on more sustainable equipment than they've had before. And I've noticed that you know, a lot of the plant hire companies now are pushing out much more sustainable equipment. And I noticed that in the site cabins, and we started using mobile minis, which had solar panels on the roof, a bank of batteries. So what you didn't have is you didn't have the generator in the site office running 24 hours a day. Just, you know, think of all the saving that made. Yes, it had a generator, but it was a smaller generator than normal, which would then kick in when the sun wasn't shining and you needed more power, particularly at night. So do look at how you can use your procurement and your existing suppliers to help you on the journey. Transport and logistics, you know, you can make changes, minimize the movement if you can, and you do use different ways of doing things to get sustainable logistics. Simple changes can have a significant impact. Now, last year, Ambipar, in conjunction with the Maritime and Coast Guards Agency, switched the National Oil Response stockpile from being powered by diesel to powered by HVO, and this was done late last year. And in the 7 months since they made the change, that stockpile, it saves six tons. At the same time, Ambipar, they converted all of their, well, they basically converted all of their vehicles to run on HVO, and their road vehicle fleet has saved 100 tons to just a little bit over 100 tons to date of greenhouse gases. And actually, along that way, they've not found any compatibility issues by using HVO as a drop-in replacement to diesel. That's a simple win, which everyone could adopt. Other things, if you're thinking about your, if you've got an office block, how many lights get left on when there's no need? Just have a PIR initiated lighting system in the offices. It's a very, very cheap and simple switch, and it means that the lights go off when people leave the room. Particularly good for tea rooms, which are only used for, you know, different clear times in the day, but the lights tend to stay on all the day. Very good in factory areas, so you could, when the guys aren't in the stores, the lights in the stores go off. Switch bulbs from halogens to LEDs sounds obvious, not particularly difficult to do, just needs to be done. Switch to a renewable energy supplier so you buy your electric from renewable sources. If you can afford it, and you will probably get a grant for it, install solar on whatever building you've got and connect it to battery so that actually it saves you electricity. And if you're not using if you're not using your battery supply, it sends some of the volts back to the grid, and you might get a few quid for it. I've mentioned switching vehicles to HVO. We'll switch plant to HVO as well. That reduces any aroma that you get from diesel, and minimizes, reduces to some degree the risk from a spillage. I've mentioned hire site equipment that runs on HVO, site cabins that use solar and storage batteries, lighting towers that use solar, and electric excavators. They're easy wins. Wherever possible, use recycled aggregate, but make sure that it conforms to the standard for recycled aggregate, because you'll be asked to account for what you've used. And really work with your aggregate supplier to make sure that when it comes in, it's got the absolute minimum of identifiable subsidiary waste in it. And what you may have to do is you may have to pick out any items which don't look quite right, but your aggregate suppliers are used now to screening the recycled aggregate before it is supplied to remove out inappropriate debris. Manage your site waste properly, so whatever you have on site can be recycled. I mean, they've just knocked down a building relatively near to where I live. They've used a small crusher, and they've crushed everything on site, so they're going to use that as the backfill. And they've used a crusher on site which has reduced it to approximately centimeter sizes, so it's going to be very easy for them to use it as backfill on site. Where you can, treat low impact areas. This is particularly in a spill. Treat low impact areas on site. If necessary, segregate it whilst you treat it, or leave it in situ, mark it and treat it on site using an in situ remediation technique. And when you have got contaminated waste, look at using soil hospitals for fuel contaminated soils or other contaminants which some of these soil hospitals will take, and record what you're doing, because that can be big gains. Now, why is this important to your business and to your clients? I think now there is a lot of pressure on businesses to work more sustainably, and therefore all managers need to adopt a sustainability skill set that understands how to use, value and respect a world of shared but finite resources that we all depend upon to create the products and services we use. Okay, well, you can tell I've copied that from somewhere, because that's not the way I would normally speak. But actually, if you think about that sentence, that's a good way of summing up sustainability. We don't have unlimited resources, and we need to manage those we've got carefully. This is positive for your business and your staff, I think, and I do urge you to get your staff involved in the journey that you go on, and particularly find ambassadors for it within your staff. Often those ambassadors will be the younger members of your staff who completely buy into what you're trying to do. But there is a lot of wisdom in your more senior members in of staff who will look at ways that can help you along this journey. And do talk about it with your clients. Let them know that you're undertaking this journey, and ask for feedback on how you're doing in their eyes along your journey, because getting their support and therefore their understanding of why things occasionally might be a little bit more expensive, they may want to use that as an example of their own progress along their sustainability journey. But increasingly, this is becoming a supply requirement. If you work for the MOD, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, you'll see an increasing requirement to account for what you've done, which is sustainable, in the project that you're delivering for the MOD. And the same will apply when you're working for bigger utility companies and bigger PLCs who are also all on their sustainability journey. There is a lot of support out there. The reason I've asked Nicola to talk today is there is a lot of information within their website. Go on the Surf UK site, because there's loads of information out there, but it only requires a Google search to see that there's stacks and stacks and stuff on this. Now, I'm going to open the floor to questions. I haven't had time to look into chat. Anybody want to ask anything? And feel free. You've got Nicola with a big brain and me with a practical brain. So just ask away, and if you've got any questions, do shout out. Is there anything that we can help you with? And is there anything that you want to ask? Right, no problems. If there's not, there's not. Our next webinar will be on this series, will be on the 7th of June at 1500 hours. And we're particularly going to focus on case studies from some of our members, one of whom is on this call. Also, we've made a TV program, and the TV program is called is in the Sustainable Business Series, and it's Sustainability and Spill Response. It was shown last Sunday on Sky, and it's also available next Sunday at 10 o'clock on Sky Digital Channel 181. And it's also available through Executive TV. And if you go onto our website, there is a link to it. Actually, it took a bit of editing to get them to think the way the TV company think the way we wanted to, but I think we got there in the end. It's 25 minutes long. It's a good watch. And again, it's quite useful introduction to sustainability and spill response. We're all on this journey together, and we should all share the opportunities, but also sometimes the challenges that it presents, because sharing is good for all of us. So that's it from us. I would really like to thank Nicola for her time today and her knowledge and her input. And I'd also like to mention that we will be at the Chem UK Expo at NEC on the 11th of May, where we're going to be talking about all aspects to do with working with chemicals. We're going to talk about the energy transition, where we're moving away from hydrocarbons to more chemical-based fuels and the challenges which that poses. We're also going to be talking about PFAS. We're also going to talk about the issues with lithium-ion batteries, and we're also going to talk about sustainability. So that's free entry. It's on the 11th of May. We kick off at 12 o'clock and run through till about 4 o'clock, and we're on one of the stages there. There will also, so don't forget, our next sustainability webinar is on the 7th of June. So that was it from me. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching. It has been recorded, and I'll be editing the recording to make sure it makes sense, and I'll be pumping it out through social media where it is, but it will be on Friday. But you'll be able to get the link to it from our website. There is where the knowledge base is. There's a pull down menu, sustainability and spill response, and you'll see webinar 1 is up there already, and webinar 2 will join it hopefully on Friday. So that's it from us. Again, thanks, Nicola, and thank you very much for attending, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.